Hi, I'm Dr. Jenny. I'm the founder and CEO of Edward Jenny and Associates. We're a group of psychologists based in West Grove, Pennsylvania. I wanted to record this short video, which is a sort of a prequel to the longer video that comes next in the YouTube channel. This one's just to give a little bit of background about the nervous system that I think might have gotten missed in the next video. So let me give you a little bit of a tour of your nervous system and we will get to work. First of all, let's talk about what the nervous system is. We're talking about the central nervous system here, and that involves the brain, the spine, and the connections with the peripheral nerves that go out to the limbs and so forth. There are two major branches of the nervous system. There is the sympathetic branch, then there's the parasympathetic branch. So think of them as two kind of opposing systems that work also in tandem. So it's not that one fights the other, they're sort of both working together. The sympathetic nervous system is all about turning up sort of the volume or the intensity of our reactions. So when we're in the sympathetic nervous system state, we are increasing our readiness to go into what's called fight or flight. So our nervous system has picked up some signal of danger or something that requires our attention and preparedness, and it's getting us ready to meet that challenge, whatever it is. Evolutionarily, our nervous system is designed to keep us safe and to keep us protected and able to protect ourselves. So that's what it's doing. In this modern world, it's sort of designed to defend us against things like saber-toothed tigers and threats. And it gets a little confused in the modern world where the threats can be a lot more diffuse and a lot different from what we're evolved to defend ourselves against. But at any rate, the sympathetic nervous system prepares us for fight or flight, to either fight off an attacker or to flee from an attacker so that we can survive. When the sympathetic system goes into effect, our heart rate increases, breathing increases. Things that are not central to survival, like digestion, actually decrease. Blood flow to the periphery, like to our hands, decrease as well. And one of the things that you'll notice is if you've been in a sympathetic state for a while, your hands get cold. When you do some meditation, when you do some yoga and you ground and down-regulate into the parasympathetic, your hands often get warm. That's one of the signals that these interventions are working. The other thing that happens is that stress hormones like cortisol get released into the body, and these are really useful if we're going to need to run or defend ourselves because it helps with things like pain management, it helps with quick responses, and being able to release a lot of sugar for consumption by muscles. So this is all a good thing as long as it's not chronic, which we'll talk about in a minute. The parasympathetic then is sort of our nervous system brake. When we don't need to be activated, the parasympathetic nervous system comes online and lowers our heart rate, increases digestion again, and puts us into this state of what we call rest and digest. So we need to be able to come back and down-regulate after periods of stress so that we can prepare for the next episode or some other challenge. Now, ordinarily, it's not a matter of going from feeling safe to running for our lives. We actually sort of fluctuate in this little range of just being activated into the sympathetic system and then back into parasympathetic. If something gets our attention, requires our attention, we're going to have a little bit of energy expended in order to deal with that issue and focus on it when we need to. But then we come down into a rest and digest state, which is really important. When we're in chronic stress, which we find in trauma and in certain lifestyles where we don't get an opportunity to down-regulate, then we're in this system of this state of chronic stress, and these stress hormones begin to have a really bad effect on us physically. So this has been related to coronary disease, all sorts of anxiety disorders, immune disorders, all sorts of negative health effects. So we don't want to be chronically in this sympathetic state, but we need to be able to flexibly use our sympathetic state of arousal. So the vagus nerve is this fascinating system of nerves, actually, that run throughout our body or innervate lots of different organs. The term comes from the Latin, which means wanderer. And that gives you a sense of what this nerve is like. It wanders throughout our body and connects things like our lungs, our facial expressions, our vocal box, our tone of voice, all of these things. And it's intimately connected with our nervous system. So we have all of these kinds of connections that are going on, and we're not aware of them. This is the source of what we call the gut feelings that we have, because there are all sorts of connections between the nervous system through the vagus nerve to our digestion and to our gut. There's a whole system of information processing called the enteric or gut nervous system. And there are tons and tons of connections between the gut and the brain that totally bypass the higher levels of the brain where we're consciously aware of things. So when people have a gut feeling, or their stomach sinks, or they have tightness in their belly, these are very real nervous system responses. So what's going on all this time? Our nervous system is constantly surveying what's happening in our environment. So it's connected to all of our senses, our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste. And anytime that the nervous system picks up any signals of either danger or safety, it activates the nervous system and sends those signals along to be processed in different parts of the brain. So the neuroscientist Stephen Porges coined the term interioception, a little bit like proprioception, knowing where your body is, but interioception has to do with keying into what your body is feeling, what your nervous system is feeling at a particular moment. So it's always scanning, it's always looking for these signals, and if it picks up danger signals, it's going to upregulate into the sympathetic nervous system, and if it gets signals of safety, it's going to downregulate into the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay? So this brings us to this idea of the window of tolerance. And I borrowed this from the Life by Design Therapy website. I definitely recommend you have a look at it. They do lots of trauma work and lots of good resources there. So I don't want to take credit for making this myself. But the idea here is that the yellow line kind of represents this optimal level of arousal. So we get a little bit of sympathetic activation when we need it, when we need to pay attention to something, but we don't go into hyperarousal. We don't get overwhelmed by that stimulus. And at the same time, we don't dip all the way down into what we call hypoarousal, where we're frozen, where we collapse. We'll talk about this in the next video, but one of the trauma responses when either fight or flight do not work is to collapse and sort of play dead, live to fight another day. And this is where things like dissociation occur. It's where people collapse and they really can't marshal the energy they need to function. And so we don't want to be in that state either. We want to be in this sort of optimal level of functioning where we're stimulated a little bit, but not too much, and we don't collapse into this state of hypoarousal. We'll talk about in the next video the ventral vagal state, which is where we feel connected and safe, and we're most able to connect to other people. And that is in this optimal level of functioning where we're not overwhelmed or kind of underwhelmed either. So a couple of quick tips. What you want to try to do is check in with your nervous system often. Just kind of reflect. Am I feeling overstimulated? Am I in a sympathetic state of arousal? Or am I feeling collapsed and I need some stimulation to get me moving again? If you find that you're activated, you can use breathing in particular to begin to regulate your nervous system. Breathing is the one autonomic function that we have some level of control over. We can slow our breathing or increase our breathing. At a certain point, the central nervous system is going to take over and we can't hold our breath forever, for instance. But we can begin to take slower, deeper breaths, and that will lower our heart rate and begin to signal to the nervous system that we're in more of a parasympathetic state and we can relax a bit. So one of the ways to do that, take some deep breaths and begin to ground yourself. Grounding just means put yourself back into the environment around you. So think about, what is it that you're hearing? What is it that you're seeing? What is it you're smelling? What are your senses telling you? And this can help put you back into the environment and kind of take you out of your head in a way. And this is why walks in nature have found to be really helpful for our mental health and physical health, because it does ground us and re-regulates our nervous system. So try to do something mindful every day. And whether that's meditation or a leisurely walk or something that can re-regulate your nervous system. So anyway, that's a very brief introduction, sort of a 30,000 feet survey of the terrain. I hope that's helpful. Feel free to leave comments and any questions that you have. Thanks.